Welcome back to Built to Ship, the podcast where we go behind the scenes with founders and product leaders shipping real AI products into the world. Today, I'm joined by Thom, one of the founders of Eventual, the platform that's designed to help families, friends, and colleagues securely store and share essential information that someone would need in the event of an emergency. Think medical details, account access, and Thom will tell us more. Thom, it's great to have you here.
Great to be here, Tyler. Thanks for having us.
Of course. Well, let's start with your background. What were you doing before Eventual, and where'd you get the idea?
A lot. Well, we'll talk about the background. I'll keep short. People can always go browse my LinkedIn profile. But my career goes all the way back to my college years where I was an intern at the National Security Agency, hacking air defense systems. So went from there to a little company in Seattle called Microsoft. Spent a lot of time there. As I like to apologize, parts of Windows are my fault. I'm sorry. Did a lot of work there, but towards the end of my time at Microsoft, I became the very first liaison we ever had to film and television because I'd been working in multimedia in the early days of CD-ROM technology and all that. And when we decided we were going to do interactive television, and for most of your audience, this is before the consumer internet ever appeared. So we were going to build out, interactive TV right to the home, and Oracle was chasing this, as was Sun Microsystems and a lot of big companies of the day. And because I'd come from the multimedia group, people thought, well, that's just content. Thom, go figure out content. And so spent a couple of years working with all the film and television studios and cable networks and everything here in LA and in New York. And then I'd run back to Redmond and try to work with the engineers to figure out, okay, how do we build that to handle those situations? Fast forward, Congress re-regged the cable industry, deregged the telco, all the interactive dreams from Oracle and Microsoft and others for trying to do interactive TV, they all evaporated. And it was kind of at the same time that we all saw the consumer internet coming. It was going to be a thing, right? It wasn't just going to be AOL and CompuServe. So I went out and created Mindshare Media. Right away, we built all of Discovery Channel's interactive business. We did one of the first initial launches of any promotion of a movie online. We did an episodic web adventure for the release of the first Mission Impossible film. And we literally invented a whole new way to do animated, what now we call them animographics or anagraphics. We were doing that with rudimentary technology in 1995 for the first Mission Impossible film. And that was fun. We sold off that production company to one of Paul Allen's portfolio companies. I went on the mercenary trail for friends in venture capital and investment banking. So I got airdropped into a couple of companies as an executive to help turn teams around and such. Then got another idea and went after building a platform that had landed in our lap. My current co-founder, another ex-Microsoft colleague, stumbled upon a deal in Finland with a couple of guys who had a gaming platform that was, think of it as Xbox Live for PC gamers before that was really a thing. And he had been, talking to them and had come out of that industry. And so said, well, let's go build a real company out of this. I jumped on board and we ended up flipping it and selling it to Yahoo, where I ran part of Yahoo Games for a while. And the kids in Finland told their friends in Hamburg, hey, you want to get to the US, talk to Thom. So next thing I know, I'm helping this Hamburg-based game platform company called BigPoint come in. We sold them to NBC Universal. Then they told their friends in Berlin at Was Up and said, hey, you want to get to the US, talk to Thom. We ended up selling them to SoftBank Japan. At that point, dear old friend of mine for many, many years, Nolan Bushnell, the original founder of Atari, he called me and said, look, you just brought 3 European gaming companies into the US. Did you know that the French own what's left of Atari? So we bought the US entity of Atari back. We brought it back into the US. Company got acquired into it, and we built that up. I owned the App Store in the summer of 2010 for putting out a lot of the old Atari titles and reimagined new versions on mobile. And then I went back into mercenary work for a while. Fast forward a couple of years, a very dear friend of mine from Yahoo, my Yahoo years, Karen Timpone, she reached out and said, hey, I'd like you to reinvent the loyalty program at Marriott, the world's largest loyalty program at the world's largest hotel company. And if you think about how loyalty works, it is a big game. It's all behavioral economics and incentives and how do I get people to behave a certain way based on what incentives I give. And so I was a kid in a candy store. I had this tremendous audience to work with and an archaic platform to reinvent, which was a lot of fun. I ended up buying Starwood. I was part of the exec team that integrated Starwood into the company. And that was a tremendous set of experiences. But after it was done, okay, I'm a tech guy. I'm not a hotel industry guy. And I love everybody there. I'm still friends with a lot of my former colleagues and people who are still there, and wish them the best. But I wanted to get back into tech and the product side. Created a startup with Tim Tebow, a football star. A lot of people may know. We decided Tim's one of the most wonderfully hearted men I've ever had the chance to work with. He saw the name, image, and likeness tradition or trend in sports picking up, where student athletes could sell their name, image, and likeness before they go pro. And what he identified was, what if the business model was we sign up the entire school? We don't go and try to sign the star basketball player, the star football player. We sign up the entire university. And that way, even if you're the third string volleyball player, you're still getting a set of digital trading cards. Now, yeah, they're NFTs, but mom and dad aren't going to buy NFTs, but they'll buy their kids' digital trading cards, right? And so you're following the same model from Topps and others of, various rarities and various issues and, different visual designs. But we literally had the athletic director at Mississippi State. She broke down in tears because nobody had ever come in from this industry talking about taking care of every student in the school. And, the model was great because it also then shared revenue. If you had a star player whose cards were selling like crazy, you could share that revenue with all the students as well as the university. Unfortunately, NFTs went the way they did. So that went on its merry way. And all the while, we kept coming back to this idea of Eventual, my friends and I. The sad story about it is that the core of Eventual came about when a very dear friend of mine, Omar Ahmad, former Discovery Channel executive, and he ended up moving into the tech world. He was an early executive at Netscape and on and on. Omar and I were working on a project for a kids framework for purchasing in the App Store so that mom and dad weren't watching the credit card get eaten up by Club Penguin points and things like that. And that was happening. And we were working on the startup. He was the kind of guy that his dining room at home was all whiteboards. And so, was hanging out at his house and came back to LA at the end of the weekend. We had a lot of great ideas, but then sadly I got a call Monday morning that he died of a massive coronary. So it was very sudden. Because he was Muslim, of course, tradition holds that he should be buried before sunset the following day. So went back up to the Bay Area, and I remember standing there graveside waiting for everybody to arrive. And I did the thing you shouldn't do, which is I looked at my phone. And as I looked at my phone, I noticed people were still posting to his social feeds, not knowing he was gone. And it got us thinking about, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with your digital legacy when you're no longer around? And this is before Facebook and others had tools like your, legacy contacts and stuff. But even those are far from perfect. But the more we dug into this area and looked at this challenge, we realized it's not about death. It's not about end of life. Yes, that is the eventuality we all serve. But it's a topic nobody wants to talk about. If you were to ask people, do you have a plan? They think, oh, I should get one. I should need one. Everybody needs one. But nobody actually wants to make it. And the free tools are out there. There's plenty of sites where you can go create a free last will and testament. And there's high-end sites where you can pay hundreds of dollars for a year, if not tens of dollars per month for end-of-life planning. And again, they're topics somebody wants to deal with. People get overwhelmed by the topic. And so you realize the end of life was not a place to focus on. That was not a business model. And the worst part about it is, from a startup perspective, you get one customer who uses your product once. It's not a very viable engagement model. So we kept kicking this idea around and would revisit it every time I changed projects. And then finally it dawned on us that it wasn't about end-of-life planning. It was about day-to-day emergencies. Every year we are hit in the United States with at least 10 major storms, be they hurricanes or tornadoes that take lives. We are hit with natural disasters like the fires here in Los Angeles last January. People are hit in traffic, in car accidents every day. And a very personal story around that relates to what Eventual does is, a couple of years ago, I got rear-ended here in the San Fernando Valley in traffic one morning. And as the police show up and the ambulance shows up and they're trying to load me into the ambulance, I'm frantically on my phone trying to text half a dozen friends who can go to the house and take care of the dog while I'm in the hospital today. Mm-hmm. And when finally somebody does answer and say, yes, I can handle that for you. Now I've got to transfer. Okay, here's a door code to get in. Here's where his food is. Here's his feeding and walking schedule. Oh, and by the way, here's his vet information in case anything happens.
Yep.
Transferring all the information in the moment they're trying to strap you to the gurney is not a smart move. And so how can we stage this kind of information and be able to make sure that it's in the hands of the people we need to have it when that emergency occurs? And so that brought with it a whole host of things around security and data encryption. We don't really fall into the area of HIPAA compliance because there's a very precise way that HIPAA relates to if you're storing data to act on it. People can put in medical information into Eventual and say, hey, if something happens to me, make sure that these people have my medications list. One question we often ask people when we're demoing is, if you got a call right now that your mom was in the hospital and they asked you what medications is she on, what would you say?
Yeah. I wouldn't know.
Everybody looks at us with a blank stare. So, but even if you were to put in medical information into Eventual, it's an encrypted message as if you were sending a text message. We don't know what it is. It's no structured field, so we don't say, these are how many of our users are taking Lipitor. We don't know that. So that we fall outside of HIPAA compliance, though we will go get certified to be HIPAA compliant when the time comes. But then so now that we've figured out, okay, it's not about end of life, it's about day-to-day emergencies. Everybody's got them. Everybody has got something they worry about. And that was the other thing, not making plans. Recognize that the power is not in sitting down and making a plan. It's asking you, Tyler, think of 3 people in your life that if something happened to them right now, they were involved in some kind of emergency, what would you need to know?
Yeah, I mean,
everybody can come up with that list easily. And so Eventual's first foray is just to simply help you ask that question of the people in your life, your family, your friends, colleagues at work. Hey, if something happens to you, make sure that I know this. It could be, make sure I have the password to the server. It could be, make sure I have, a list of other people you want me to call. It could be any kind of information that you want exchanged when that emergency occurs. And the triggering of that information distribution can happen manually, of course. If I'm incapacitated, I have people designated as my delegate that can activate that plan in my absence. Biometrics. So if I fall, if my heart rate stays over a certain rate for a period of time, and I'm such a geek, one of the triggers that I have set up is that if I don't unlock my watch or my phone in 12 hours, something might be wrong. And so just ask Thom, are you okay? If everything's okay, fine. Yeah, that's fine. If I don't answer affirmatively within 10 minutes, it sends a message to a couple of contacts. I've set that up and say, well, they're my secondaries. Ask them. If they don't answer affirmatively within 10 minutes, something's probably wrong, and it activates the plan and starts to send out the notifications.
That's fascinating. I want to ask, I definitely resonate with what you mentioned about, like, everyone knows they need a plan, but, like, where do you get started? It's a big it's a big hurdle, etc.
Right.
Also, just want to say, really impressive background. You've kind of done everything, and so I'm sure you bring all sorts of expertise to this startup. What's made it the time for Eventual to happen now? Like, how has AI made it? Was it possible before? Does it transform what you're building in any way? And how do you think about, like, where and how you incorporate AI and agents within Eventual?
Matt, great question. And obviously, given the time frame I just walked through, AI wasn't a thing when we first started with this idea. And one of the impediments we ran into was onboarding people and keeping them engaged, right? So when you think about the people in your life, oh, mom, what's your medications? So I have them on record if anything ever happens. Even the act of sending that request to mom can be delivered by AI. More importantly, mom should be able to freestyle her information. She should be able to take a picture of a prescription bottle or just say, I'm on Lipitor, or I'm on this, or I'm on that. And the agent knows how to organize that into the right data structure inside Eventual versus making you fill out all kinds of forms. Totally. Which admittedly today, we're in our alpha version right now. We've got about 60, 70 people testing the alpha version. And they've onboarded primarily through a forms interface while we've been building out the AI. So you've got AI applied to the ingestion and the onboarding and onboarding. Then you've got engagement, which is a set of agents that are constantly watching, what was that? There was a favorite old 80s movie of mine, Buckaroo Banzai, and they had their platform, World Watch One, to keep track of all the emergencies around the world. So, we're watching the National Weather Service feeds. We're watching U.S. Geological Survey feeds. We're watching a lot of different news sources. And so, there's those alerting apps. Like everybody here in Los Angeles last year was on watch duty because we want to know what was going on with the fires.
Yep.
And you've got apps like Citizen who will tell you, hey, there was a shooting 2 miles away from you. That's great. You've been alerted. What do you do about it? And so having an set of agents that are monitoring this kind of information and seeing where does it apply to which of our customers. Oh, your mom's in Florida. There's a hurricane warning for her zip code. You need to know this, right?
Totally.
And being able to coordinate that kind of information at scale in real time. The only way to do that really was with this kind of agent architecture.
So two things you pull out there that you shared that I think are really important for folks to think about. I think too often people jam like a chatbot into a situation just because they want to use AI. But I think you gave a great example of something that's really painful, filling out like, man, I can only imagine all the different types of data or information you'd want to put into Eventual. And if you have to do every single like, okay, well, if it's this type of medication, it's this form. If it's my will, it's this thing.
Exactly.
If it's my door code, you have to use this UI. If instead you can have an open text box, maybe you're chatting with an agent, maybe you're not. Maybe you're just inserting some text into a form and the user doesn't even have to know that it's AI. But I think that's a great example. And then the other is just this like always on proactive search and intelligence that you couldn't do before, or you could, but you have to write like a direct integration with, the weather service. And then you have to write a bunch of logic of like, well, how do I do with a category 3 versus whatever?
That? How do I evaluate it against the existing data set? Right.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's great. How are you thinking about when you're building these agents? Are you using a framework? Are you doing this, in-house from scratch? Do you use an agent builder like N8N, something like that? How do you guys think about the trade-offs of build versus buy when it comes to AI infrastructure?
Good question. And I'm going to frame it first by talking about one more set of agents that we didn't discuss yet, which is on the output side. You're standing in the emergency room. Mom's back in, under care, and you've got a question to ask. You need to be able to ask the agent a question, even with voice, in real time, and get an answer back. Now, it may be during the fires. Where's my nearest evacuation point? I need to be able as a user to have a conversation with Eventual. And so Eventual not only needs to know about my friends and family's information that they've decided to share with me, but it needs to know about all the data from FEMA, from California State CAL FIRE, as we call it out here, right, for the wildfires. It needs to know everything from LA County Fire Department. It needs to know everything from, different municipalities, counties, state level sources of guidance and data around what to do in this kind of emergency. Even continuing that on to now the interaction with the personal data. As I said, we're all encrypted end to end. So we had to come up with, and it's interesting because I just watched a YouTube video from another company called Open Evidence that's in the medical field. That great guess if you can go get them. But they had to solve the same problem we did. I can't know what you put into your record. The agent needs to be able to parse it and use it in RAG, but it needs to do it in a black box so that no employee at our company can ever see that data. And as a matter of fact, the agent forgets it after you've answered your question for you. Now I can't solve for people screenshotting, but
that's a great problem, it's a problem that a lot of companies are actually dealing with. And my follow-up to that is like, how do you evaluate the accuracy then? Is it just you have your own test data that is mock, and then you
tons of synthetic
run tons of synthetic data? Is there any way you can evaluate though, like customer satisfaction, or make sure that the agent's doing what you expect on your customers when you can't see their data? Have you gotten to any sort of solution there, or is there any industry best practices on how do you evaluate agent performance?
It's actually pretty simple, and you see it in a lot of the chat bots out there today. And the agents out there with simple thumbs up, thumbs down. Was this accurate? Was this answer what you expected? Right. But also one other trick is, the number of times that we use a lot of AI coding tools, and it's not really hallucination, but they get fixated on a wrong answer. And when you tell the agent that's wrong, here's what the answer was supposed to be. Like we can do that in coding a lot. Being able to capture that and recognize that feedback. So I'm still not seeing the core data, but I can know that the user told me that's not right. More so than just a thumbs up or a thumbs down. But you asked about frameworks. N8N is great. We evaluated it. Right now, we're built top to bottom on the AWS stack. And one of the things, because of some of the things we're trying to do with the AI architecture, I'm really humbled that AWS chose to give us a pretty substantive 6-figure grant just for development of that tech. And then NVIDIA jumped on board as well with another 6-figure grant to say, great, train your models on our hardware, please. But we were actually, as we speak, in the midst of refactoring our entire architecture onto Amazon's Agent Core. So that's their new framework that some of your listeners may not be familiar with. It's a pretty robust. They've got, of course, workflows like N8N and stuff accommodated in there, but it's been a learning curve. We're in a field where the state of the art changes every 2 weeks.
Yep.
So,
and we're all learning. If anyone tells you they have the right answer to any solution, they're lying, because it's every day something new is happening.
Right.
Well, that's fascinating. I hadn't heard of this. Repeat it one more time, please, for me. Agent Core with AWS. I'll have to check that out. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, we started with Bedrock, right? Yeah. And when we built our first agents on Bedrock, and we're building collaboration workflows between, supervisor agent and having a voice agent hanging off the side of that and speaking to the agent that knows about support, can answer any question about the product and how to use the product and what the product can do for you. And then another agent that understood all of that emergency guidance data from around the world, but being able to take the vector database and hone it to just what's relevant for you in your area or your family's areas. And then the third agent about that secure user data, transferring all of that into first strands, which is, if you're familiar with the strands framework, which is, so if you think about it, the easiest way I've heard it explained was very much akin to MCP, right? In that, in the early days, if your agent called a tool, you had to know everything that tool was going to expose.
Yeah.
The tool itself couldn't tell you. And that was one of the big advents of MCP, is that the protocol affords that a tool can express discovery, can say self-discovery. It can tell the caller, here's what I can do. Here's my API.
Yep.
Here's my parameters. Here's my payload. Strands is a way to do that at a Lambda function level, if you will. And so you can get right down to an individual Lambda function and encapsulate it and wrap it. And Agent Core does all of that, but probably the most powerful thing that people first noticed about Agent Core is it takes that entire framework of an agent and strands or MCP tools and Dockerizes it. And so that you get instant scalability. Because for us, when, in a perfect world, when the hurricane hits Miami, we're going to have tens of thousands of users potentially either in Miami or across the country with family in South Florida trying to interact with the agents.
Yeah, you need to be ready for that. You need to be able to scale up dynamically, etc.
I'm a victim of surges. So I'm not going to have a high level of activity in everywhere at any one time, but in different areas, I may have massive surges of activity based around an emergency. Fascinating.
Well, thanks for sharing that about, the AWS Agent Core, and definitely something folks could check out. We're at time, but I want to throw up your website on the screen real quick and share a little bit about how people can follow along with Eventual. You mentioned that you're in alpha right now. I assume you might be launching soon. How can people, get access and share more?
Yeah, so we're planning to enter public beta in right after the holidays, right after the new year. Just putting the final polish on a couple of the AI pieces in the Bedrock Agent Core transition I mentioned. But up there at the top of the screen, we've got request an invite. We've got a growing invite waitlist. So we didn't welcome any of your audience to sign up, and we have them. We'll roll it out in a tranched wave, probably starting again the second week of January or so, a few hundred at a time, to make sure everything works as expected.
Amazing. It's really exciting, and all the screenshots you have look super clean. So I'm excited to see the launch and to try it out myself. I'll be signing up for the wait list, and folks in the audience, take advantage of that now and get early on the list. And thanks again, Thom. I'll follow along obviously as you guys go through launch, and looking forward to checking out some of the technologies that you mentioned on the show. Thanks again for the time.
Thank you, Tyler.
Have a good one.